So it's been a little over 2.5 years since I started this channel and the community over on the forums and the Discord server, which first of all is just crazy. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. But back then I used to do a video every few months showing some custom parts and other things that people on the forums had been working on. It's been a long time since I've done one of those videos, and we've grown quite a bit since then. So today I thought I'd give you some updates and show you a few highlights of some things that people in the community have been working on. And that includes a quick update on the MINTYPI. Alright, so I'm just going to jump in here and go over several parts and projects that I've either been keeping an eye on as people work on them, or that people have sent me to check out. And if there's anything that you want to find out more about, there should be a link to a blog post in the description, and that should have all the information that you need. I'll start with one that I'm really excited about. One of the most common questions that I get on the videos about the Game Boy Zero project is, can I do this with a Game Boy Pocket or a Game Boy Color? And there have been some options out there for doing that, but this is the first one that I've gotten my hands on. This is called the Pocket Pi FE, and this is from Galaxy Gaming, and this is a Raspberry Pi based handheld made for a Game Boy Pocket. At the time of posting this video, they're still taking pre-orders. You can get just a bare PCB like this with a list of parts that you need to get to attach to the board. I specifically asked for them to send me that version so I could post about it on Instagram and share my thoughts about it as I go along. But then you can also get a fully soldered board except for the Raspberry Pi, so you just need to get that and attach it. It comes with a pre-cut case for you, so you just put it all in there and you're good to go. And then they also sell a fully pre-built version as well. It's got some kind of unique features too, like an HDMI adapter and even a wireless charging cartridge that goes in the back, so you can use any Qi wireless charging pad to charge it up. They're also going to have a custom lens for it made by Bluish Squirrel, which I know is kind of a funny name, but they're pretty awesome. They make all kinds of custom shells and lenses for different kinds of handheld game consoles. So really excited about that. Like I say, I'll be sharing my thoughts about it on Instagram, and I thought about doing a quick build video showing you guys how to put it together from scratch. So if that's something that you guys want to see, let me know in the comments below. And something else interesting about the Pocket Pi FE is it uses this 2.6-inch screen. It's an SPI screen, but it's pretty fast and it has really nice viewing angles. What's particularly interesting about it to me is this is actually the screen that we're planning on using in the next version of the MINTYPI. So that's a nice segue to start telling you a little bit about version 3 of the MINTYPI. We're still working on it. We're still probably a little bit over a month away from being able to take pre-orders for it. We'll see. So like I said, we're using that 2.6-inch screen up from 2.4 inches in the previous version. And this is the new bezel. It's still kind of a work in progress, but you notice there's a button on the left side of the screen now. We're still tossing around ideas for what that's going to do. In fact, we may even make that user configurable and have a few different options for you. But the plan for now is to make the default function for that button be to save state, and then if you hold the function button, it'll load state. There are already shortcuts built into RetroArch to do that, but it's always nice to have a dedicated button for something like that so you don't have to remember button combination. The next big change is custom silicone buttons just for the MINTYPI. These were modeled after the DS Lite buttons that we used in previous versions of it. Julio and I helped design them, and Helder took care of getting them manufactured and all that stuff, and they came out fantastic. They solved the issues of buttons getting kind of stuck in the 3D printed parts if you don't file them down just right, and they feel super nice and responsive, and they come in several different colors, which is pretty fun because it opens up some neat color combinations that you can do, like this one, which I'm sure you recognize, which is a good segue to show you the new faceplate. So on previous versions of the MINTYPI, we had the start and select buttons off to the side, and they could be kind of awkward and hard to hit. Now that we're using these silicone buttons, we were able to move those into the middle of the board where you'd normally expect them on a controller. And then here on the right hand side, we've got a couple of integrated buttons that press tactile switches underneath them. This is a pretty common technique in 3D printed parts, and the faceplate of the Prusa i3 is what gave me the idea for this. They work really well. They're completely flat against the faceplate, so you don't accidentally press them if you don't mean to, but they're really easy to engage if you want to. The top one, as you can see, is a power button, which means that there's no power switch on the front of it anymore. So you won't have to cut a hole in the tin for that. You won't have to solder any wires for the power switch. That's all integrated into the faceplate and the button PCB. Then the button below it is the function button. So again, if you remember in previous versions of the MINTYPI, that was an optional button that you could add if you wanted to. Most people wound up wanting to, so it really just wound up creating extra work. So now we're including that here for you. And then if you notice, yes, that is a headphone jack. poking out from the bottom there. That's something that so many people asked for, so we're gonna go ahead and make that happen. And then finally, we've got these custom batteries that Helder has sourced and gotten custom labels made for. They're 2200 milliamp hours compared to 1200 milliamp hours that we used in the previous versions. They're these kind of cell phone style batteries that you'll be able to slide into the bottom of the tin and make contact with some pins on a board that sits in the bottom of the tin. So a lot better battery life and no wires to solder. I'm pretty excited about that. So we still got a few things up our sleeves about MINTYPI version 3. So keep an eye on Instagram. We've been sharing little tidbits here and there as we finalize things. So MINTYPI isn't the only thing that Helder has been working on lately. In particular, this little board is pretty exciting for all kinds of different projects. So in a lot of my projects, you've seen me use various different kinds of battery charging boards. A really popular one and one of my favorites is the PowerBoost 1000C from Adafruit. It's a really popular choice. The only problem with it is that it can't provide enough current to run something more powerful like the Raspberry Pi 3 off of it without it showing the low power symbol on the screen, which means that it's not getting enough power and it's underclocking itself as a result. That's bad news for emulation-based projects because you're not getting the full performance that you could out of your Raspberry Pi. This board is able to provide up to 3.5 amps, which is more than enough to power even the newer Raspberry Pi 3B Plus without breaking a sweat. In fact, I posted this on Instagram a few weeks ago. I was running a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus off of it as well as a 7-inch HDMI screen, and it was all working perfectly fine without showing the underpower icon on it. It's got an enable pin on it just like the PowerBoost does, so that makes it really easy to add a power switch to your project. It has pads for connecting charging status LEDs, an analog to digital converter for battery monitoring and auto shutdown like the MINTYPI has, and there are even some pads that you can use with the battery monitor script for adding an analog stick to a build that maybe you just used a plain button PCB for. Another thing that Helder's been working on is sourcing some nice big beefy batteries for Game Boy Zero builds. These are 4500 milliamp hours, which is quite a bit, especially in a Raspberry Pi Zero based build, and you only have to trim a couple of things in the battery bay to make it fit perfectly inside it. So these are pretty exciting to have. There has been another similar option to this on the forums for a little while. I'll link to it as well. He's in the UK and it winds up being shipped from China, so it can take a little while to get there. And from what I've seen, they've been in kind of limited supply off and on. So if you're in the US, this should be a really nice option for you. And then finally, this is one of the more ridiculous but awesome builds that I've seen. This is a Burger King kids meal toy from the 90s. And Helder's actually created a button board that you can put in here to add a Raspberry Pi and a screen and actually turn it into a working gaming handheld. There's somebody on Instagram that's been doing this for a while, but I don't think that he has custom parts, especially not ones that you can actually get yourself. And the cool thing about what Helder's doing is he's actually making that open source, so you'll be able to go and order those for yourself off of Oshpark and get them pretty quickly. So like I say, kind of ridiculous, but also kind of awesome. I love stuff like this. Next up, a couple of things from another popular maker in the community, Kite. And first is one that I'm kind of ashamed that I haven't done a video of yet. I've meant to for ages, I just haven't got around to it. And if you followed the scene at all, then you've probably heard about this already. It's been out for a while. This is the Circuit Sword. So this is about as good as it gets when it comes to an all-in-one board for the Game Boy Zero project. Pretty much everything but the battery is built into this board. Really, all that you have to worry about is getting a case, modifying it a little bit, and dropping this in there. Prior to this, Kite had his Super All-in-One board, which was similar to this, but it was based on a Raspberry Pi Zero. This time, it uses this guy right here. This is also made by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. It's called a compute module, and it's basically a Raspberry Pi 3 in the same form factor as a stick of laptop RAM. It's much more powerful than a Raspberry Pi Zero, perfect for something like this. There are no pinholes to line up and solder down like there were with the Raspberry Pi Zero. Just get one of those, slide it into the socket, push it down, and that's it. Just like his previous board, this uses a 3.5-inch DPI screen, so super fast and super clear. I can't say enough good things about this board. If you're wanting to make a Game Boy Zero right now, this is the way to go. These are always in really high demand, so he does batches of them periodically, so you'll definitely want to follow him on Instagram to find out when those come in stock. Another project that he's been working on that I've mentioned in a previous video is an all-in-one board for the Dreamcast VMU. If you watched the build video that I put up for that, you probably noticed that doing it that way is not for the faint of heart. So the board that he's working on for that will do for the VMU what his Circuit Sword did for the Game Boy Zero. So I'm really excited about that one. And again, follow him on Instagram for updates on that. Several videos ago, I had put together a project called the MINTYPI from Mooseper over on the forums, or Mooseper, MoosePR, I never could figure out how to say that. He goes by this on Instagram, Piakit, I don't know, I think he gets a kick out of us not knowing how to pronounce his names. But really fun project that a lot of people were interested in. It's about as small as you can go with the Raspberry Pi Zero based handheld. And it was already pretty awesome, but he's made some big, or I guess physically tiny, improvements for the next version, the MINTYPI Pro. Double the resolution, so 240 by 240, which equates to 4 times the number of pixels on the screen. I've seen the screen, it's a huge difference. It's night and day. You can actually read tiny text on it. It's really nice. Digital audio with improved speakers, extra face buttons, better power management with battery level monitoring and safe shutdown. Super easy build with no soldering required. So that's pretty cool. And then it's also got this high quality SLS printed nylon case, which just looks awesome. So yeah, all around a huge improvement over this version, which was already pretty cool. He posts pretty frequently on Instagram, so be sure to give him a follow if you want to get updates for that. So another popular name on the forums that you might recognize is Julio. He's pretty well known for making some great 3D printable designs for the Game Boy Zero and other projects, and lately he's been working on some pretty cool projects. This is one that he calls the Pixel Box. It uses a 16 by 16 LED matrix that you can get on AliExpress for about $20. He's got a 3D printable frame and a custom PCB for it to make it nice and clean on the inside. It can display the time, but it can also display bitmaps that you put on the SD card. He's going to be releasing a list of all the parts that you need and all the files that you would need to make one of these, and he'll also be making the PCB available, so if you want to make it nice and clean on the inside like he did, you'll be able to do that as well. This next one is based around a part made by a company called Waveshare. It's called the Game Hat, and it's pretty cool because it's only 40 bucks. And you add it onto a Raspberry Pi and it gives it a screen and controls and speakers all at once. I haven't gotten my hands on one yet, but Julio says that the screen is nice and clear and vibrant, speakers are really nice and loud, and it uses an 18650 lithium ion cell, which gives it a couple hours of battery life. He's modified his a little bit. He's replaced the clicky tactile switches with some of the soft silicone ones, and he's also designed a 3D printable case for it that makes it much more comfortable to hold and play. So he's going to be making that available as well. Next up is a really slick project by Ampersand on the forums, in kind of a nod to the Game Boy Zero project. He's been calling it the Game Boy Null. It's pretty simple. It's a custom PCB that has a couple of tactile switches on it, and then places where you can attach a Raspberry Pi Zero and a battery charging board, as well as a 2.8-inch ILI 9341 screen, which is a really popular choice for an SPI screen. But what really sets this one apart from other similar builds is this acrylic case that he's designed. I mean, come on, that's just sexy. So I shared this on Instagram and it got a lot of attention. So if you're interested in making one of these, he has some kits over on Tindy that you can go and get, as well as files that you can download and send off to a service to get an acrylic case cut for it. He's also the person that won the ESP32 based community project competition that we did recently on the forums. He made this really cool motion controlled Tetris game, also with a really slick acrylic case that it goes into. So definitely give him a follow on Instagram. I'm excited to see what he comes up with next. And then last, but definitely not least, another popular choice for battery charging is the Micro LiPo from Adafruit. You may have seen me using this in a few different projects. But for whatever reason, charging boards like this one are still using micro USB, even though everybody's kind of migrating to USB Type-C connectors. Well, somebody's created kind of a clone of the Micro LiPo, except you can see it uses a USB Type-C connector. She goes by Typhlosion over on the Discord server, and she did a small batch of these not too long ago, and right now she's working on another version that'll charge the battery at 1 amp. And then she's told me she's also working on a version that will boost the voltage up to 5 volts. So essentially a Power Boost 1000, except with USB Type-C. And another really cool thing that she's doing is she's making all of that open source. So I believe she'll be doing some small batches of these, but since it'll all be open source, if you wanted to, you could put in an order to Oshpark or some other PCB manufacturing place and make your own. So that's really cool of her, and it's neat to see people kind of jumping in and filling needs that other companies like Adafruit, for whatever reason, haven't yet. All right, guys, well, there's a lot more out there that I didn't cover, but this video is already getting pretty long. So if you like these kinds of projects, then definitely check out the forums and our Discord server. There's cool stuff popping up all the time. So if I missed any that you think I should have mentioned, let me know in the comments below. And again, check out the link in the description for a blog post that should have more information on everything that I mentioned. So as always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.